Strive and Thrive is a collection of discussions featuring guests from various fields, focused on guiding entrepreneurs in creating businesses that excel in every aspect: people, planet, and profit. Throughout the series, you can join us, Ramesh and Mike, as we explore relevant topics with our guests which can help businesses thrive.
Ramesh and I met while I was supporting a client transforming their business, and I needed finance director support and reached out to him and his team. Since then, we've become good friends who share a passion for business and entrepreneurship. If you like today's discussion, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's latest episode of Strive and Thrive with Dan Davies, founder of IBDM. Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, no problem.
Right, let me do a quick introduction. Dan and I have worked together now for probably over 10 years on some really interesting projects, predominantly in defence, but these have included projects where he's used AI to chase me around the Salisbury town centre, use of drones and flying them through streets in Finland, and understanding the communication techniques of elephants' feet. So the types of projects that Dan and I have worked on have been fascinating, in early innovation, and really interesting. So Dan, thanks for joining us. So could you give us a quick 1-minute career summary of how you've got to where you've got to today?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much for inviting me first. That's first and foremost. Just a quick whistle stop then. I'll take you back to, I did my master's degree in social anthropology at the University of Wales many years ago. I absolutely loved doing social anthropology, but I wasn't ready to commit to being an academic. No offense to the academics. I just wanted to get out there and start using some of the tools and techniques in industry. So started off my career as a project coordinator, project manager, and then business development manager within projects around the West Midlands in the higher education sector. Absolutely loved being at the coalface of working with industry, understanding small businesses and their challenges and their quibbles and their exciting developments and innovations. And after doing that for 5-6 years, I just thought I can find a niche here and I can do this as an independent. And I set up Independent Business Development Manager, IBDM Limited, in January 2011. And I haven't looked back, really. That's where I came from.
Thanks, Dan, and lovely to meet you. Appreciate you joining us today. So could you explain a bit further how IBDM works? So you're a business development manager. I mean, fractional CRO could be another way to describe it, potentially, Chief Revenue Officer. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think I predated fractional in a way. Fractional came in after I'd set up. I was always referred to myself as an independent, and I purposely do that. So because when I set up IBDM at the start, I saw that there's a niche for particularly micro and small enterprises that have got really amazing technology, really innovative solutions, but sometimes don't know how to sell them or don't know or haven't got the time, quite simply, which is where a lot of fractional workers come in. I was adamant that I didn't want to be another coach or another business advisor, because the profile of the people that I tend to work with, they've got enough stuff to do in the week as it is without being told that they need to do more. So I was much more comfortable going into the company, usually with the founder, with the CEO, understanding what they've got and then going out and doing it for and with them, rather than saying you could do this or you could do that. So I don't really mind what my job title is or what I'm called, but the fundamental is that I sit alongside the company, and I can cover a lot of ground for them.
And that's to specifically help grow their sales and revenue.
Yeah. Sniper focus, really. I mean, you give me a new product or a new solution that either you want to test a new market with or you want to expand the market. I live and breathe it, and I go out and sell it and position it. So it's not a sales job really. I don't see that I do sales, funnily enough. I think it's positioning, and it's matchmaking, and it's relationship building, and it's strategic partnerships, but it's all for that single focus of helping that company to grow their revenue through contracts or through sales.
Okay, excellent. Mike, thank you for that. Mike mentioned just now that you work in defence. Is that specifically the sector that you serve, or do you serve multiple sectors?
Probably for the last 8 or 10 years or so, it's tended to be more in defence and security and government. That seems to be the happy place. I'm not from that background. I'm not military. I'm not police. I just found myself in that position with a client many years ago, built up the network, and genuinely really enjoy it. I enjoy that environment. I enjoy the straight talking of defence personnel. And I know that there's especially at the moment with the world context, there's a huge amount of opportunity. And defence is in a position now where they're actively looking to engage more and more with the industrial complex. And it's just a good time. I still do other work that's not defence based, and some of the clients that I work with have got non-defence technology that can apply to automotive, healthcare, construction, you name it really. It's not just a defence consultancy. Okay,
excellent. So I'm going to ask you a two-part question now, which I think is nicely linked. I'd love to understand at a high level the kind of, I suppose, the bullet point ways in which you help companies grow their businesses. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be really interested in that. And secondly, I would love to understand the link between your studies and education on anthropology and how that feeds in to sales, because I know that you're quite influenced by that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll have to remember the two-part question. But if I lose track, you can come back to me.
I will. Yeah. That's fine.
So the how first. I always describe myself as being really nosy when I meet new clients or when I talk to people about what I do, and I genuinely do mean that in a good sense. And I think the theme that runs through all of the work that I do as a BDM is constantly asking questions, constantly searching for new opportunities, and lifting stones up and see what I can find. And that's sometimes the bit that the clients that I work with just haven't got time to do. They're so busy running the business, so busy doing business as usual, they haven't got the time to do that. And that's my role. I go out in a defense sense, it could be called a door kicker. I'm going in and I'm opening up the avenues and seeing what's there. I never make any bones about it. There's no rocket science to it. There's no special secret sauce to it. It is just time and the inclination to go and ask questions and ask people. And that's why I say when I mention that I don't see myself as a salesperson, I don't think you have to be. If I can understand what the client is offering and what their solution is, and then I can find somebody that wants that or might want it, I'm just introducing two people who've got a supply and demand at that point. There's no hard sales. There's no twisting of the arms to say you need to buy this, because we've all been on those conversations where somebody's trying to ram something home and you're saying, listen, I don't need it. I don't want it. You're never going to get a sale. So I think you can shortcut most of that and just have a common sense approach and find people that genuinely need what you've got to offer. So most of it is network is really important.
I was just about to say you must have a big network.
It's really, really important to maintain it as well. So I never ever want to be the person that only gets in touch with somebody when I need something. It's not how I work. It's not how I like to be treated by other people. I genuinely like conversations, and me and Mike go back years, and we've bounced a huge number of ideas past each other, and we've introduced
ridiculous ideas.
Yeah, and we, it's not just a network as in X 100 or X thousand of people. It's really quality people that trust me for what I do, and I trust their judgment when I take something to them. So that will probably link into the second part of your question about the anthropology in a moment. But just being able to understand different markets, the directions that they're going, what the challenges are, what people need, makes my job a lot easier, because then I can present things to them that they're already looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come back to the network thing because I'm quite interested in that.
Okay.
That's brilliant. But I'll let you answer the second part of the question.
The second, I mean, this is the bit where I could bore you both to tears with anthropology, and I really will try not to. But it is, it's something that I've just been enthused with since my university days. Really, that must be 20 or so years ago when I did my master's in social anthropology, and I sum that up as about, again, it's inquisitiveness. It is trying to look at the world and trying to look at people and cultures, almost with a childlike gaze. You're trying to look at something new for the first time, and that can be really difficult, because when you've been in a company, or you've been in a situation for so long, you take so much stuff for granted, and you don't actually see it anymore. It's just there and you don't see it. One of the things of being an independent or fractional and coming in alongside and with clients, you can maintain that distance, and you can see you can see the newness and everything, where potentially the principal in that company doesn't anymore, because they've lived and breathed it. As an example, I'm working with an aviation company that, I've got 40 plus years experience in the aviation community. They know, they've been there, done it, got the t-shirt for everything you could imagine for aviation, but they will only look at the world through that lens. They can't look left and right of it and see what else there might be. And of course, with emerging technologies, drones and unmanned systems that are part of aviation now, you need to constantly update and see where the opportunities are. So the anthropology just runs all the way through it. It's about people, it's about cultures, it's about what makes people do things, systems they put in place, networks, social networks, symbolism, all these kind of lovely things that I find are fascinating, that other people might just start to fall asleep. But it genuinely is fully entwined with what I think you need to be as a good business development person.
You're doing a PhD now, though, aren't you, Dan, in anthropology? What is it specifically?
I'm doing, because I wasn't busy enough, Mike. I decided to now the family's a bit older. I always knew I'd go back and do a PhD. I definitely wanted to do it, but it was finding the right time. I had a young family, had a business to run that was fairly early stage, and I just couldn't commit to it. But a few years back, I'm 3 years into a 6-year part-time course with St Andrews now, and it dovetails so well with the business. I'm doing the focus area loosely is technology innovation and futures in the UK defence. So I'm very much looking into the same pool that I'm working with for client for IBDM, which gives me really good access into the communities that I know and understand. So yeah, it's really good, but the two things are so closely entwined.
So what I'm getting is kind of, sorry, Mike. What I'm getting is kind of observation, understanding, curiosity, and judging people in the room, or sorry, not judging, understanding what's going on in terms of behaviours. Yeah. That's very interesting. And Mike, if I may, before I hand over to you for the next set of questions, if I can just ask more about the networking side of things, Dan, because I'm a real believer in networking. We've had a good episode on earlier on in our podcast series with Stefan Thomas about the power of networking, also Peter and Sarah Moles. And actually, I think you can create opportunities, but I liked what you said about building meaningful relationships. It's not just a case of kind of a scattergun approach, is it? It has to be deeper than that.
Yeah, I think showing my age now, but with social media and things, when they came along, there was a there's kind of an inflection point where the concept of friends or networks or contacts changed a lot. And it almost became a race to try and find as many people. It was like a Pokemon hunt. Try and find as many people as you could to be your friend or your contact, and your power became, a metric. There's a number. I've got 10,000 contacts on LinkedIn, so that's a brilliant network, isn't it? And I've never subscribed to that. I think there's, this will upset people. There's a vanity in that kind of approach, and that the biggest network is the best, and it genuinely isn't. I've got now, I'm not going to put a number on it, but a core number of people in different industries that know me and trust me and hopefully like me, and I reciprocate and do the same. So it means when I pick up a new client and I've got a new brief to kind of sink my teeth into and really immerse in it, I've got people that I can go and sound check it with. So I can, if it's a cybersecurity brief, I've got people that I can say, listen, guys, this is what I'm working on now. I think it might be quite good, but what do you think? And then, again, there's no sales about it. It's positioning something that I think I would genuinely value your feedback. And the more you do that, and the more quality that is, the more trust is involved, and they know that you're not a time waster and you're only bringing something because there's genuinely something there. And that for me is network. And then I reciprocate. I get people come to me and say, what do you think about this? Can I introduce this to you? And it's based on years of trusted relationships. And that means a huge amount. If you compare that to somebody that just sends you a connect message on LinkedIn and say, can I connect because I want to sell this to you? Your defenses go up and it just doesn't work. So.
Yeah, no, it's music to my ears. I mean, I kind of blend, I suppose, a little bit of both, So I do have reasonable, or the FT consultant. We have a reasonable following, but actually, it's the deep relationships that you can cultivate within that, and with the people that you meet virtually or in person on a on a basis that's more than once. I think you identify people you connect with and you share values with, right? And then you kind of pursue that. I see it as planting lots of seeds, but having to go back and water those to nurture those relationships.
No, I like that. Yeah, I like that. And that blur, there's definitely a blurred line between people that you meet physically face to face and people that you meet online. And I think a huge amount of that changed with COVID. During the COVID years, when everybody had to kind of take a step back and not see people physically anymore, there's a big shift in terms of how that affected business and networking. There's people in that trusted network that I've never met face to face. Genuinely haven't, but I feel like I have. I've spoken to them so many times and shared knowledge and done things with, and those sometimes are just as just as powerful connections as those that you've been going to breakfast network every Wednesday morning at 8:00 and eating mornings. So there's definitely the whole COVID years were you've probably done it to death on the podcast, I don't know, but they were game-changing years in many ways. There's an anthropologist that wrote a really good book, Gillian Tett, and she wrote Anthrovision, and some of that is about the COVID years. Absolutely fascinating and well worth a read. Really good.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, I'll check that out. Mike, what's your approach to networking?
Working with people like Dan, I think I'm one of his little network people, and we have little WhatsApp chats probably once every 2 or 3 weeks on ideas, opportunities, and I think that probably sums up how I know Dan and how I work through people like yourself as well, Ramesh. It's not really a formal network, it's more of an informal network, but there's probably a middle ground of a word where it is slightly more formal because you actually know who your go-to people are. And so and for me, that's the model I take in terms of engaging with networking and working on ideas. And I think some of the areas Dan and I have worked on, we've worked in defense in some fascinating domains, and we've seen opportunities, and then suddenly we're talking to researchers in the US about their technology for um, sniffing sort of soil samples. And then we're working out with them how we're going to work with an AI company who we know, and we're trying to put them together into this new value proposition. If I was to give an example of how working with Dan is like, that's kind of a good experience or a good
hectic. Example. Yeah, hectic and chaotic.
And you've got to turn it around in a week.
Yeah, yeah. But it is those kind of things. It's the observation of seeing, and admitting where the gaps are, either in knowledge or technology, and then going out and finding people that can fill them.
You're predominantly, Dan, and you touch on this with your your PhD subject, but you're predominantly in early research, right? Not early research, early technology ideas. Even if the companies are mature, you're playing in the new technology ideas.
Mostly, yeah. It tends to be either a well-established company that's thought of something, a new product or a new solution that's parallel to what they're doing roughly, and they haven't got the resource. The resource in the team's focused on their bread and butter business and what keeps the company going. But then they think of something else and they go, well, this could be pretty cool. Let's see if it works. So those kind of things.
Can you give us some examples? You don't have to name the companies, but some of the types of technologies that you're playing in and why some of them are so challenging to get into defense. Because a lot of people think if I invent a cybersecurity capability that's incredibly secure, defense will buy it. If I build a drone, defense will buy it.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy, is it? Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that illustrates your challenge.
Yeah, there's two. I mean, you've brought up cybersecurity there, so I'll lead on that one. Then there's another one as well. A small cybersecurity team that I've worked with. They've literally got the grey hairs on this. They've been there, done that, seen it all for everything to do with secure communications, secure software, and just coincidentally, really, in a conference 4 or 5 years ago, and they'll talk about this as well. They were presented with a challenge from defence, as it was at the time, for a particular focus area, shall we say, and just in the coffee break, they were stood there nicking the cookies and having a cup of tea, and it came to them. They thought, well, this would be a great idea. We could take this challenge on and we could do something, and that's where the idea was born. The innovation wasn't, because I think innovation is more than an idea. You have to do something with it and take it along. Scan ahead a few years, and they've now got a pretty mature solution. And in jargon terms, it would be technology readiness 7, maybe. It's right up to that point where it could be deployed and used in the wild. In combination with the fact that it would make a massive difference to defence and to government and wider industry, you would think that would be the easiest thing in the world to sell, and it's not, because partially because cyber and government is a really highly regulated area. You'll get this one mesh from the financial side of things, extremely regulated, on rails almost. It can't move off the accreditation rails, has to do it. And so when you take something that's truly innovative and paradigm shifting to that community, they can't buy it, that they can't use it in a way. So it becomes really difficult. It's a challenge I'll take on, and I've been for a couple of years, and we will get there without a shadow of a doubt, but it's not easy. And that's the thing. You need time, and you need stubbornness or tenacity, whichever one you want to call it, just to keep going and keep going through the next step. So there's clients like that.
Isn't it the talent, though, the bit I think that you do that's interesting, Dan, and I think the bit I'm reflecting on trying to get technology into environments that are highly regulated or commercially difficult, which defence is one of them, policing is another, NHS is another, very difficult environments to get novelty into, is that it's the ability to navigate that complexity for adoption. So it's the commercial risks, the cybersecurity risks, the procurement challenges. That for me is the piece of the puzzle that you're really helping these little companies navigate, and helping them recognize that what you're trying to do, if it's paradigm shifting and game changing, takes years, not days. And just because someone loves it doesn't mean they'll really quickly pay for it.
No, and quite often they can't. I mean, all of the people that we present this particular one to absolutely love it. They understand it. They get how powerful it could be. But on the other hand, they're still hobbled slightly by the regulatory systems and the structures. We had the same thing, Mike, when we were working on the drones. What was that, 5-6 years ago? You rapidly come to the decision that technology can say yes to most things. If you put enough money into it and you get the inventions and you get people doing it, you can crack most things. You really can, most of the challenges. But what you can't move quickly is the regulatory side. So back in the day, you could get a drone to fly down, city streets and underneath the cables and over civilians and whatever. The technology says yes, but the regulatory bodies would say no. It's too dangerous, it's too risky, we can't do it. It doesn't fit this form. And a lot of the work that I do with clients is trying to manage that system of technology and compliance, because you need both of them to be able to go forward. And then the people understanding of not USPs and benefits, but I call it the so what factor. You've bought this great thing to me, so what? What does it mean to me? What can I do with it? And if that's not adequately explained in a way that culture or that organisation understands, then again, unfortunately, it's another barrier that you just can't get past or around. So there's those kind of companies. Another one that I've worked on within the cyber domain is a team that's extremely smart, extremely bright team, and to do their day-to-day work, they just developed a piece of software that would make it easier for them internally to do their consultancy. And then after doing that for a couple of years, they sat there and thought, well, if we find it useful, maybe somebody else will. So they've got this absolute gold nugget of a piece of software that they just knocked together because they could. And then I came on board to help them market that and put it out to other consultants and then other organizations. And that's ended up being sold across the world into all the places that we won't mention, with acronyms that we won't mention. North America, South America, Australia, EU, all of these places. And it becomes, because you pick something up and go, wow, okay, that is astounding what you've done. Let's go and see who else wants to use it, and then just do it.
Really interesting. And with what you've learned from your experience of working with all these founders, businesses, small SMEs, and with what you've learned through or learning through your PhD, and you'll eventually get there after 6 years. What would be your recommendation for technologists, small companies who want to develop solutions and sell them into these highly complex regulated environments, such as defence or healthcare being the same problem?
Oh yeah, good question. I think it's got to be that you've got to make sure that there's a need for it in the first place. This is, I'm spending so much time on the PhD doing this because, again, not to bore you to tears, but the innovation journey or the innovation cycle of things presumes that because you've developed a whiz bang new gadget, that everybody's going to want it. And if there's no, the military always talk about demand signal. If there's no demand signal for what you've got, they won't take it. They can't. And within a really closed hierarchical system that military and police are, it's very, very structured. As an outsider, as a civvy looking in, it's very hard to even get those requirements because they just won't tell you. It's getting much better. The last 10 years or more, they're getting much better at telling industry what their challenges are and what they want. But it's still difficult. So you end up almost innovating in silo. You're making something you think would be pretty cool, and then you're happy with it, and you take it to somebody and go, well, we're not asking for that. We want this. So again, it has to be not relationship, it has to be dialogue. You have to be making sure that you're talking to people all the time about what they need and what they would like to see, and then positioning it.
It's definitely worth market testing, isn't it? Researching whether there is a genuine need and desire for that product. It always reminds me of that Sinclair C5, back in the day.
And there's loads of these. Mike, you'll be used to this. In defence speak, they call it the valley of death. It's probably in different industries as well. But the valley of death, I mean, and living and breathing that for so many years, doing early stage innovation projects. You get commissions to do a piece of applied research, hopefully to develop, one of these by the end of 6 months or a new drone or something. and you put your heart and your soul into it as a small business owner, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver it in 6 months. And you do the reports and everybody's, this is great. This is awesome bit of research, hopefully. You get to the end of the 6 months and then you go, well, where do I take this next? And then there's nobody there waiting for it. And they call it a valley of death, because you then sit potentially 6 to 18 months thinking you've got a really good piece of technology, but nobody's asking for it. And you've got, as a small business owner, you've got to make the decision: do I keep investing in it, or do I leave it and move on to the next thing? And it's really, really difficult. So there's loads of those C5 Sinclairs out there for people who are making all manner of amazing things, but if they're not being coupled up with somebody that needs them, then they wither on the vine, don't they?
Yeah. One of the challenges, the C5 Sinclair is a good analogy, but I think, which means really you've built something that there's perhaps not a market for. But the problem we often see, I've seen it, Dan, in a number of domains, and I know I've worked with you on a couple of them, is actually there is a need there, to your point, Ramesh. It's just it's not going to move in 6 to 18 months. And you as an organization have got to make that medium to long-term decision of how am I going to build a business around this, or is it even feasible to build a business around this if the commercial need or the procurement need is going to take longer than the technology need. To Dan's point, technology is speeding up now, and often the barrier is less around the technology and more around the ability to adopt the technology.
Yeah. You think, Mike, about the AI project that you alluded to that we worked on? I mean, that was so fun, so much fun to do and to be involved with and get to where we did. And all of the kind of plaudits and the feedback that we got was, top notch. It really was. Even that, we couldn't get it to go to the next stage because there wasn't anybody there with open hand saying, yes, please, I would like that. And a lot of the work that I'm doing in the PhD side of things at the moment is trying to understand that picture of how it is at the moment, the as is position. And then maybe coming up with some ideas for how it could be better. And one of the glaringly obvious things that comes in is on those kind of innovation projects, you need the customer involved as early as possible. So you don't get to the point where you do the innovation for the sake of it, and then you get to the end of it, say, well, who's going to use it? And there's nobody there. It's just an empty room. If you've got that customer or customers in as early to the start as the commission of that project as possible, then they've got an incentive, one, to help you to nurture it along, and two, that they can do the handover at the end of it, so it goes into again in the military jargon, into the hands of the users. That's if I'm going to spend millions on an innovation project, I want to be able to recoup that for treasury purposes, obviously, but also because I want what it is that we've commissioned you to do.
That's good. It's good insight, Dan. I work with a client that has been looking at innovation, producing, or providing additional services. And what they've done is they've kind of put together a suite of different ideas and taken that to their clients. And it's really been quite interesting because some of the things that they thought might be nailed on were not particularly attractive to clients and wasn't something that their clients were looking to pay for. And actually, by having deeper conversations with their clients, they unlocked other requirements. So I think there's a definite win in interacting with clients and with the market generally, right, and doing some research.
Yeah, I mentioned the book that I mentioned earlier on, the anthropologist side of things. I mean, I'm too junior in my anthropology days to do any of this by any stretch, but there's a really strong and growing network now of anthropologists that embed with business. So that, organizational anthropology or design anthropology. There's a really good podcast by Matt Arts. I'm not sure if you've seen that for all this anthropology stuff. And the true value of that is having somebody embedded within your company or within your organization that can do all of that stuff. They can understand it and they can help you to position it properly. it's, there's the big company, Amazon's and Google, and they regularly take on anthropologists now to do that work. The military, particularly in North America, the military sector for anthropology is huge. I think it's the biggest employer of anthropologists. Not so much in the UK at the moment, but hey, we can work on it.
Right. I think one of the biggest challenges is that with a lot of the companies I work with in the early technology space, it's that what's a customer?
Mm-hmm.
And we always assume if you have a retail hat on, the customer is the user. So you're buying something like a mouse that someone's going to use. Mm-hmm. Actually, when you're in these domains, the customer is multi-persona. Mm-hmm. The customer is a soldier on the ground, along with his battalion, along with the procurement agencies, along with the research agencies, along with the policy. You're into a kind of multifaceted customer world. Yeah. And that is a real challenge for SMEs. And it's often why the bigger primes win these wars when it comes to technology adoption into sort of more regulated spaces, because they're able to withstand that kind of organizational boundary on novelty.
Yeah, that's a really good point in there, because the KYC in the financial world of know your customer means something, but when you're selling technology, it's equally important for different reason. If I go back to the cybersecurity side of things that I've done before, you routinely on that side of things, you get multiple customers in an organization. Quite often the first person that you engage with is the technical side. So it'll be a chief information security, or it'll be the lead developer, or it'll be the architect, whoever it might be. You need to show them what you've got and convince them that they need it and they like it. So that's fine. That's the technology bit. The amount of meetings I've come away from where my client will then go, yes, we've got it. He loved it. He's going to buy it. He wants to buy it. You go, well, hang on a minute. He's never going to buy it because he hasn't got the budget or the checkbook to do it. So there then needs to be a discussion between the technical person and the procurement or commercial person that we're not part of. We're not part of that conversation. So you're then trusting that the technical person has got the enough buy-in at that point, and the skills and the clout within the organisation to convince procurement that this is a good thing and we need 10 licenses. And then you've kind of got a secondary sales position of then now we've got to convince procurement by going through their tick boxes that we've got all the compliance and the ISO standards and the cyber essentials and whatever else to be able to commit and do the sale. So it is complex. That's not just a cybersecurity thing. That's in any of these highly regulated spaces. That just seems to be the way of it.
Love it, Dan. Thank you. So obviously, businesses now are facing quite a tough time. Mm-hmm. You're a business development manager, and that is one of the more challenging areas, I imagine, because of the uncertainties we face. Perhaps maybe your sector is somewhat shielded. I don't know. But what are the challenges of entrepreneurship now as you see it?
First thing, the sectors that I'm working in, they're buoyant at the moment because the worldview and the geopolitics at the moment and the way that things are going means.
I realised that as I articulated it.
I couldn't have picked a better / worse time to do my PhD studies because the world has just gone crazy, and there's so much in technology innovation. There's so much in the geopolitical realm that it's very hard to to keep track of day to day. So it's a really buoyant market, but that in itself brings its own challenges as well. For the entrepreneurial side of stuff, I think it's a great time. I think people that have got the aptitude to not just innovate and develop, but then to position it properly, I would argue it's a golden time, especially in that community, because people are much more receptive now to engaging with industry and bringing those ideas and innovations forward. But that's what I mean. It can't be done in silo. It can't be a good idea on its own is not enough for somebody to. Well, I say in normal circumstances, it's not enough for people just to pick it up and buy it. just on the merit itself. That gets skewed slightly with venture capital and the kind of the big money that will quite often take a chance on a very, very early stage idea that's not even founded yet. I think that kind of, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that kind of skews the market somewhat, because you then get some expectations that all you need to do is think of the new idea and then you'll be the next unicorn, and it's easy.
Okay.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is that easy.
No. So yeah, you've been, I do understand. Yeah, you're in a sector that, because of the uncertainty around the world, is actually starting to flourish as a result of that. How about, what would your advice be to people who are trying to develop and grow their sales in sectors which are struggling? And I would say that that's a lot of sectors at the moment outside of where you're operating. Yeah. Do you have any advice for, or insights for businesses in that scenario?
I mean, I'm more than slightly biased in this, because I pick and choose who I work with. So I make sure that I'm picking and choosing the technologies and the teams. And to me, it's both. I have to really like the technology and I have to really like the people that I work with, because it's fun then. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work. I think in some industries that are definitely feeling the pinch and feeling the pain now, we can all see them in the media. We know which ones they are. It's really, really difficult, because a lot of it comes just down to pricing. Your proposition is based on whether you can do it cheaper than somebody else, and that's really difficult. I think what spans across all of them, regardless whether it's defence or retail or automotive or whatever, it's got to be relevance. What you're doing and what you're spending your time making and designing and building and selling, it's got to be relevant to your chosen customer. And if it's not, then it's just, and nothing stays still, does it? Your customer, the customer that you had, I'll use that aviation example, the customer that the company had 20 years ago, it's very different to the customer now and what they expect and what they want. So if you're still doing things that you did 20 years ago and expecting that to work, it's, I think it's hard.
Okay, so it's kind of focus on ways in which you can add value and adapting to what.
And again, we come to that. You mentioned uncertainty, which is one of my key themes in the PhD. Funnily enough, I should have it on a T-shirt by now. But everything is uncertain, and you feel that uncertainty in everything that we do. Whether you're a small business owner wondering where the next contract is, or where you should put your time and efforts, what government's going to do next. That there's an uncertainty in just operating small businesses at the moment, which for a lot of people is a massive burden and pressure. But I think handily, to bring it back into the key themes of business and anthropology, you've got to invest in understanding what your sector's doing, what the customers are doing, what the technology's doing, what the wider politics are doing. I think you've got to understand and either invest directly in that or engage somebody that can do that for you to be able to stay on top.
That for me is the nugget in what we're talking about here. And I think I talked to a few people in America, and the early startup world is much more in business innovation with a technology. Whereas in the UK, we're often technology and looking at how we do the business.
Yeah.
And I think that's the puzzle that you've just sort of touched on. You're lensing it with anthropology here, Dan. And I think that's right. Go and understand your customer, but understand every dimension of your customer, not just their technological needs, but also how they procure, what their policy changes are, what their sector needs are. Who are the influencers in their organization who can unlock the finances, the risk, the commercial constraints.
Yeah.
And for me, it's continued sense making, right?
It's continued sense making. It comes back to Ramesh, the networking. Quite often when we talk about networking in a business sense, it is those, formal networks, the BNIs, the breakfast meetings, that you go and do networking, or you do it online, and as we said earlier on. But it needs to be more than that. You also you're tapping into the the wider network that sits behind. I'll give you an example. With all of the political changes between North America and the rest of the world, pretty much at the moment, I think we're in, what I think other people have called interesting times. On one stage, you look at that and you think, well, it doesn't affect me because it's over there and it's too big anyway. It's governments talking and arguing, but on the ground, that directly affects a lot of the people that I work with, because that used to be their biggest market. And if I can no longer sell to my biggest market, then where am I going to find the equivalents to move to? And if you're not staying, and within defence, especially in dual use technologies, if you're happy with that. So there's a lot of investment going into that. But for a small company to sell their new technology to another government overseas, it's not just about knowing your customer. You've got to know about the sanctions list. You've got to know about embargoes. You've got to know the political side of things. You've got to deal with FCDO. You've got to deal with exports. You've got all of these things that you need to do when you might only have 2 or 3 people in your company. So the admin burden, I guess, of doing business is just going up through the roof. Mm-hmm. And if that coincides with a time when budgets are tight and taxes are going up and your operating burden is higher, how do you square that circle? How do you get somebody in to help you do that if you can't win the business? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a catch-22, really.
Yeah, it's challenging for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hear that there's within those challenges there's opportunities. For me personally, in the IBDM construct and the way that works, that's a really good market signal for me. Unfortunately, it's not like a Schadenfreude. Oh, great, businesses are struggling, take on an independent. But there is part of that, because you can alleviate, and the same as what you do, Ramesh, you can alleviate some of that pain. They can get the skills and the expertise and experience they need, but without the burden of full commitment, I guess. And then as you travel down that path and you develop a market and you prove that there's a market for their product, they then make a decision to recruit a full-time BD, which I step back, or they continue on with a fractional scale up.
What's your with IBDM, Dan, what's your entrepreneurial view of running your own business and how that's worked? Because we've talked a lot about third parties and the experience, but it's an emotional journey when you do it yourself. What's it been like for the last however long now? I can't do the maths in my head for you, but many years. What's been your entrepreneurial experience and how you've sort of pieced that together? And what's your view of the world going forward?
I can honestly say I've loved it. I've loved every minute of it, and I continue to do so. I did set it up as a very selfish, me-centric model, which was I was always going to choose who I work with and what I do, and I think that's massively beneficial to me, but also to the clients that I work with, because they know that we're positively involved and it's not just something we kind of mess around at or play at. So fully dedicated to it when I take on a new brief. I've made the decision to keep it just me in the company, so I haven't got employees, and I chose that not because I'm nasty, but quite the opposite. I didn't want the burden of having to make sure there's enough money coming in to pay for employees when it's the world that we live in is very very bumpy and very up and down. I do want to scale up, and I'm doing that through a franchise network model at the moment. So I'm always looking for really strong, inquisitive BD people that want to do it themselves now and kind of have the benefits of being independent. But it's been brilliant. I did it for the right reasons, I think, at the start, which was to focus on the bits that I like doing, which is with industry and with with innovators. It also fit with having a very young family at the time, and I wanted to spend more time with them rather than in the car. It's been great. Doesn't come without its problems or its challenges. It's hard. It really is hard at times, and you need a decent team around you, not employment team, but a decent network again of people that you can say, I've not faced this before. What do I do? And Mike, I'm sure you've had that many of times as well. I just don't know what to do. And as long as you've got trusted people around that you can just pick up the phone or email, then it's good.
Yeah. So Dan, what does the future hold for you? What's next for you?
Next, well, I'm a split personality at the moment with business and research, so they're both coming in. I've got another 2 years to do field work and analysis for PhD, so that's that'll be there by click of a finger by the way things are going at the moment. So I'll be focusing on that to get that done, running IBDM alongside, and I've still got this. It's not a need; it's a drive to do the scale up. So find more people to build the IBDM network and get that moving. It doesn't need to be a big sprawling vanity project of hundreds of consultants. I'd much prefer to have a team of 5 to 10 really good quality people across the UK doing what I do and enjoying it than I would 50 or 100. So that's where the effort will go in. Try and find those people.
Excellent. That's great. That's great.
Really good.
And continue working on the crazy projects with Mike.
We haven't touched enough on some of our lunacy ideas that have been have been going on. But honestly, Ramesh, it's been hilarious working with Dan. We've honestly worked with some genius PhD individuals who've got ideas of how they could use smelling through soils to detect missing bodies and drugs, and how we could turn that into a solution for drug dens and how that would work within policing. We've had the talents and ability Dan has brought to bear on what we're doing is the ability to quickly get those SMEs with the subject matter experts, with the business in a room and go, can we do this? And if we can do it, how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's been some of the most fun work we've done over the last 5 years, Dan.
Yeah, it's a combination of all the skills that you can find, and then really it's that fail fast thing, Ramesh. It's stick people together, say, can we do this? If you can't, then move on. Don't keep going if it's not going to work. But when it does, it feels great. It feels great when you put all those things together and you can see that it's actually happening, and then you get funding. But the funding is for innovation. It's validation in terms of we think the technology looks good, but it's also a validation personally that you guys can do it. That there's a backing for you to say we know you can get this done. So it's a nice feeling when it all works. It's great. There's a lot that don't work, and there's a lot that end up on the cutting room floor. A lot of crazy, wacky ideas, but some of them can good.
One of the ones we worked on, we talked about the Salisbury AI defence project, and that idea, it hasn't gone forward in defence, but we're just talking to some big sales and marketing companies who are interested in exactly that concept. So it's amazing how you create the relationships, build the idea, but you have to innovate it in a different sector, even in a different approach, and you get some interest in different spaces. So such a fascinating period. So thanks, Dan, for joining us. I normally do a quick reflection, but I'm going to pass over to Ramesh first. Have you got anything you'd like to raise? And then sort of I'll cover where I think Dan has added some insights to what we offer.
Dan, firstly, thank you very much for joining us. Really good chat. I think, you've really emphasized, the importance of understanding your customers, understanding their needs, understanding the market, and understanding the environment in which that market operates. And I think that makes so much sense, right? The more information, the more validation you have in all those areas, the more likely you are to provide a solution that people want to buy. That's a good takeaway for me.
My reflection on building on that is that you've given this whole understand your customer context a word in terms of anthropology, Dan, but I think for me that is a lesson that I would recognize to any entrepreneur. Really understand your customer, and not just the person who's buying, but everything about them and what they're trying to achieve. And I think that is even more important in the world with which technology now is moving so fast and it's quicker, and technology, to your point, is no longer really the barrier. Actually, it's about how they're going to adopt it, and can they adopt it, and will they take it on board. And I think that's something lots of individuals and companies who've got, I've got a piece of software, let's spin it out into another sector. You might have the technology, but you've still got a difficult learning journey around getting it into that ecosystem and all the challenges that takes. And it requires experts like yourself to be able to help navigate that. So really grateful for you joining us, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for very much for listening or watching, and we hope you enjoyed today's discussion with Dan. Strive and Thrive is a podcast for entrepreneurs, founders and business leaders. Please like, follow and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels.
Thank you for listening to Strive and Thrive.